This is Messi Can't Stop Her, and I am your host, Judith Cambia Obatisa, JKO. Welcome to Messi Can't Stop Her, the podcast where we share the stories of women's resilience through chaos, crisis, and the challenges of life. Today, we have the amazing, I love her, Jessica Janzen. She's a wife, mama, keynote speaker, author of the wonderful must-read Bring the Joy, coach and co-founder of the Love for Lewiston Foundation. According to Jessica, her therapist says she has the same battery pack as the Energizer Bunny. Despite that, like many of us, she has also struggled with depression, suicidal thoughts, feeling stuck in darkness, and alone, even in a room full of people. Jessica believes that life is too short for us to allow heartache, uncertainty, loss, and grief hold us down and keep us stagnant. For Jessica, pain became her rocket fuel for changing herself and others so that they can live their lives, show up big, and give themselves all in to the joy that is in the life that we have. Welcome, Jessica.
Thanks, girl. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you so much. So on Messi Can't Stop Her, we normally start by asking our guests to take us back in time. You see, I've just talked about all the things that you are, co-founder of the Love for Lewiston Foundation, author, a life coach, supporting women through tough times. But you came from the mess. So I always ask, can you tell us the mess?
Girl, how much time do we got?
Just give us just a little bit. Encapsulate all of the life's journey that you can. And anyone that needs to learn more, there is a book.
Okay, let me capsule this for you. So I think just to level set, the very first thing is I'm still in a mess. I think we all are. I look at my mess with a different and a fresh perspective. So whoever's listening to this, it's not like I've arrived, but I've learned to find joy in the journey, in the mess of life and chaos and heartache and, financial strain and marital strain and mom strain and all of it. And so if I rewind the clock to, how did I get to this point where I'm at today? Super simple is I was born and raised on a farm just west of Winnipeg. My parents are farmers, proudly been farming for over 42 years. I hated growing up on the farm, hated it, despised it. Now, of course, I've moved off and I'm like, damn it, I want to move back to the farm and give my kids this incredible life that my parents gave us. But growing up, I hated it. It was definitely some tough years, and it still has been, where you got bed sheets for Christmas, and I got made fun of for that in, elementary and junior high, and I'm just finding my footing and who I was. I think those are really tough years, but I had an incredible support system and great family to navigate me through that. And I talk about that because I attempted suicide in my grade 11th year. I had overdosed on prescription painkillers. I had broken my wrist and snowboarding, and I just downed the whole bottle. I'm really good. Like my vitamins, I can take all of my vitamins, and there's like 8 or 9 in there usually, and I can take them all in one shot. And so taking 50 prescription painkillers was not a big feat for me. I did it, and I tried to go to sleep and was hoping and praying I'd never wake up again. And God definitely had different plans for my life. My mom found me, and rather than waiting for an ambulance, drove me into the city because we were rural. And that led me to, some therapy and figuring things out. And, I think just working on stuff, because it's crazy when you have a great family and good support systems that even then you can still have dark thoughts or things be tough. And so I graduated from high school. I got through that and I went to college. I didn't really love it. I definitely struggled to find my footing, and I had an opportunity to move west. One of my best friends had moved out here. So I was young, single and able with $300 in my bank account. Like, what idiot is like, hey, I'm sure we'll figure it out. I'll just put my first and last month's rent on my line of credit or credit card. Like, just idiot. And my parents moved me out here and dropped me off. And I remember sitting on the front porch that we had at this little duplex we were renting. And I just remember bawling, being like, what did I do? This is the worst thing ever. And like you do, you figure it out. And so for me, figuring it out was having, 7 different jobs the first couple of years, finding my footing, finding the people, loving and hating jobs, finding a job I loved only to have the company sold. And the new role that I was offered when the company got acquired wasn't what I wanted. So then trying to find it all over again, just when you feel like you found your footing. And in there, I got connected to a great church. I started volunteering and serving there. I was single for a lot of years. I had broken up with my boyfriend that lived a mile away from my farm, and I was single for almost 8-9 years, like no dates. I think I went on like 4 dates in like 9 years. So for almost single ladies, I hear ya. I feel you. There's hope, because I am now married to hot Ronnie, who is hot. He's good in bed. He's a loving husband, an incredible father. Like, I got the jackpot. So all the years of like, what's wrong with me? And I'm not dating anyone definitely have paid off. And I'm so thankful that I was patient, although hard in the time, but now looking back, I really did get God's best for me. Yeah, I mean, a ton of different jobs in there. And in that, I met my husband, hot Ronnie. I asked him if he was okay. At the office late one night, we were not friends. We didn't, go for after drink, like beers or anything, but I knew something was up. And me leading to that question, are you okay? Led to us becoming friends, to us becoming best friends, to me falling madly in love with this man's heart and his goodness. And we've built a life together. He started a company. We're in the franchise and food restaurant business. We've had 3 kids. One of them, unfortunately, passed just before his 6-month birthday. We had an insane journey with SMA, which is spinal muscular atrophy. And the heartache that we've been dealt with, extreme loss and some really tough times, has led us here to this moment. And so the perspective that we both look at is not why, but it's in this so now what. And so I'm living this so now what phase. And it's a beautiful phase to be in, because it gives me perspective of what can I change? What can I focus? We don't get to choose always what happens to us, but we get to choose the response. And so the life I'm living of a successful entrepreneur, of, I'm happily married, not to say without its tough times where my husband drives me crazy and I want to rip his balls off, but the one that I'm in a committed and loving marriage, the one where I have these amazing babies I get to raise, and where I wake up and I've built a life I love, that for me is coming from a perspective. And it's because of my response and our reaction to the tough things that we've been dealt with.
Thank you so much. I'm so privileged. Many times on this podcast, I don't get to read people's lives in a book before I talk to them. So I am really, really happy that I'm having this great opportunity. So I read where Hot Ronnie said, event plus reaction equals to outcome.
Yeah, girl.
The podcast Mexican Supper came out of the fact that many people are in these dark places in life. And sometimes they don't even have someone who is going to talk them out or help them out. So this podcast is for us to hear people's stories of that moment that was so dark and despondent. And you did the opposite. Instead of going down in the dumps with the situation, you went uphill.
Yeah, I like that.
That's also from your book.
Oh my God, I like that. I'm like, oh, I wrote that. Yeah, okay, good. Okay, good.
So I just want to ask, because the life-changing event that was major, that put you on the path of this foundation coaching, was Lewiston, this amazing lion that you were privileged to birth, to carry.
Mm-hmm.
And I would want us to just go back there because I want to understand the intricate combination of pain and joy that came out of the life that Lewiston lived.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I always laugh. I think it's so funny. I was told by doctors that we'd have a really difficult time conceiving. And, if there is any gentlemen on this, apologies, or females, this is a lot of info. But I never got a regular period. And I had major stomach issues, endometriosis, celiac. They say all these things, kind of work against you when trying to have a baby. And so doctors were like, you might not be able to have kids. Like I'd get maybe 3 periods in a year, which honestly, let's celebrate. I was like, okay, saving on tampons, like, woohoo, here we go. And so I never cycled regularly. And so doctors were like, you might not be able to have kids. That's where we're at. So when we tried for our daughter, we were like expecting this 2-year, maybe IVF, like maybe fertility. We didn't know. We got pregnant basically first go around with her. Amazing. Very not common now. You hear more people struggling to get pregnant. And I'm not kidding you. Like I had just finished kind of healing up and you're just trying to get back into your groove as like, husband and wife feeling it. And we basically looked at each other, used the pullout method, and along came Lewiston, who was our second. And, my husband's like, I've used this pullout method before. And he's like, it's worked. I was like, okay, well, I'll believe that when I have a 18-year-old kid show up on my doorstep and be like, that's my dad. And I'll be like, oh my gosh, the pullout method again didn't work. And I crack jokes because, for me, humor is a way that I process in my heart and it's not for everyone. So if it's not, swipe on by. But we were shocked that we had this baby. And I know to this day, as much as I was like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that we thought we'd have difficulty getting pregnant and then to become pregnant so easily. It doesn't make sense that no one's heard of spinal muscular atrophy. And our own son was not we didn't know he was born with it, but at the time, healthy pregnancy. I taught fitness up until I was 36 weeks pregnant, took fitness classes, taught fitness classes, not one iota of a concern, nothing, no ultrasound, nothing. And so then you have this baby and I had a 13-month-old daughter and then I have a brand newborn. You're just in the thick of motherhood. I think I was changing up to 20 diapers a day. Newborn diapers, you're going through 12 plus whatever my daughter was going through. It's snacks, breastfeeding, and you're just wash, rinse, and repeat. And when he went limp and, our journey started unfolding of, hey, we got to figure out what's wrong with our son, and to where we are today, as much as I want to deny why did this happen, I can't believe this is our story. A huge part of where we are today is just this radical acceptance piece. And I had to radically accept that I had helped this family for 9 years prior to my own son being born. And they had not one, but 2 children with spinal muscular atrophy. 3 weeks after Lewiston was born, we went and we had finished fundraising almost $50,000 to buy this family a wheelchair accessible van. There's these key moments where I'm just like, whoa, it's just crazy. All of these things, how they unfolded and how this was our story. And so when my son got this diagnosis, I was so familiar with what spinal muscular atrophy was that I was like, okay, let's just roll up our sleeves. We'll fundraise the money. We'll get the wheelchair accessible van. I'll ramp our house or whatever it is. And what took our story to just another level was he was diagnosed so young that at the time there was no treatment. There was no medication. There were some clinical trials. And so when they delivered the news to my husband and I, they said, we're really sorry. He has spinal muscular atrophy and we don't think he'll make his first birthday. So our role will be to keep him comfortable. And if you're a parent and you've ever looked at your kid or had something tough happen to them, it's like your worst nightmare. And so when someone says hey, they won't make their next birthday. Hey, this is, we can't do anything other than make them comfortable. You picture that for your grandparent. You picture that for someone in their 80s where you're like, hey, they've lived the good life. They've had the fullness. And so I went dark really quick, but I know because of my struggle with mental health in the past, I know that if I let myself go too far, too deep, without raising my hand and saying, okay, we need help, without saying, hey, I'm going to be struggling, without stepping out of that and reframing, that I will get so dark that that's where it leads to suicidal thoughts. That's where it leads to, it would be better if I just wasn't here. And that's all crossed through my mind. And so rather than going that dark, that deep, my husband and I just banded together and we said, okay, like this could rip us apart or it'll bring us closer. And it has wanted to rip us apart, but we've chosen to let it bring us together. It has wanted to rip me apart and rip me down, but I've chosen to look at it with a different perspective. And that line that I mentioned is from Rick Warren. He's a massive pastor down in California. Incredible, brilliant man. Look him up. His sermons, his books, they're life-changing. But he had delivered a sermon on this, and it was my husband that then shared this concept at Lewiston's funeral. I wish we could take credit for it, but I want to make sure I give credit where credit's due. And that for us was like, we just measured everything on that. You don't get to choose the circumstances. You don't get to choose the tough things that come your way. So where do you have the choice? And for us, it was, what will our response be to this? And that framed everything for our family. It framed how we showed up in the day-to-day. It framed how we showed up in decision-making. It framed how we moved on, even when a parent's worst nightmare is that you hold your child and watch them take their last breath. It framed that for us. And so as much as I wish I had a 5-year-old running around terrorizing the house and, watching him play with his little brother, those aren't the cards that were dealt. And so I'll radically accept what has been given and gifted to our family. And I'll choose a perspective that's powerful, that helps me show up and not back down.
That's so wonderful. The fact that we do have a choice in the matter.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the things I took away again when I was looking at your story. The choice to be resilient. The choice to be resilient. Like you said, many families don't survive when trouble comes.
Right.
But in your case, and we're even talking about the loss of a child, and a child that lived most times in the hospital. Some people don't even have as much trouble, yet their families don't survive. So, but you made a choice to be resilient. I know that the choice to be resilient is one that we can say. But when I look at your story and the fact that you took a decision to make joy the legacy that's left from this supposedly sorrowful situation, can you maybe speak to somebody who is in a place, maybe not even with the loss of a child, or even a loss of a child, or whatever loss or heartache that person is in? How did you muster up that, knowing that, like you said, you have gone down the dark spiral of mental health challenges in the past, and yet you were able, this moment, when it mattered the most, I may say, to make the choice for resilience?
I wish I had this magical answer that could be like, here's the 3-step process. Susan, if you're struggling today and you got grief and you cannot choose joy, if you do 1, 2, and 3, you'll be good. And I think that's what we expect in life, is we have this expectation, like, give me a 5-step process, give me the weight loss in 10 days, give me the ABC steps to get out of debt. And it doesn't work like that. And so when people are trying to sell you this 1, 2, 3 process, or, steps 1 through 6, and you guarantee these results, I think that's where we come up with like this false belief that then if you miss a step or you do the step and it doesn't happen, then that's when we throw in the towel. And so when people go, well, how did you do it? I did it because I'm wired this way. And the truth that someone needs to hear on the other side of this is that you are wired for it. We're wired for resiliency. We're wired to keep going. We're wired to not give up. But along the way, from, birth to where we're at today, we start to believe all of the BS negative self-talk. We start to believe the things like, what if it isn't possible? And so I think what is really beautiful about my soul and about how God wired me is that I live and lean into the possibility and not into the problem. And I truly believe the majority of society will like push in, lean in, focus on the problem. And I always say there's two types of people. You're either an excuse maker or a solution provider. And so I just kept looking for the solution. Okay, my son's dying. Okay, that's what we're facing today. Great, radically accepted it. Let's go into the solutions. What are the solutions? Well, we're going to have fun in the hospital room. So when you're all around, don't be so depressed. This is already sad enough. So I want you to come in with your good energy. I want to like have a little dance party with the doctors. I want to, have essential oils so the room doesn't smell like a typical hospital. I want people to come in and feel something different. And so for me, there's not like this 1, 2, 3 step, but it's this deep belief that like joy is possible. This is me believing in the possibility. Because if I just focus on the problem, my son's dying, our life's over, my marriage won't survive it, that's all you're going to get. And I think it's like we go where our eyes go. We go where our eyes travel, where our heart wanders, where our posture is focused on. So if I can share this with anyone, it's like, I want you to ask yourself truly, like, what are your eyes focused on? The problem or the possibility? And I just continue to choose the possibility. I see so many people struggling with emptiness and loneliness and all of that. And it's like, man, if you would fill that up and you would focus and allow God into your heart, like just watch what shines. And I'm like, I'm a believer. I love Jesus. I go to church on Sundays. And it doesn't mean that I now just escape and I'm just on this golden path to like, well, it's easy and away we go from here. My husband, after he gave his life to God, went through his toughest years. He was like, babe, he's like, it was easier to be a drug addict and a drug dealer and have the past that I had than it has been to believe in Jesus. He's been given harder, tougher assignments than ever before. But he's like, I wouldn't want to do it any other way. So just because we choose this thing doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. So I have this saying, it says, show up. It's on my mouse pad. It's on my mug, but I say, show up, do the hard work, stay consistent. And so that for me is like, you want to know the how? The how is that I just kept showing up. The how is that I just kept committing to the hard work. The how is that I just stay consistent in that. And then you can actually rewire your brain so the default setting doesn't go to problem. Your default setting becomes possibility. And I'm married to the guy that's focused on the problem. And it drives me freaking crazy. Like, I'm like, we're going to be fine. It'll figure it out. Like, this could happen, that could happen, da, 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 da. And I'm over here in the possibility. And I've got negative Nancy over here that's like running worst case scenarios. And God bless, I love the man. But like, his default setting is the damn problem. And this is what we do. But guess what? He's just got to rewire. And I've just got to give him the patience and the grace to do it on his own terms, because I know I can't change that man. He's going to have to do it for himself. And so wherever you're at, I just worry about what my actions are, about where my eyes go. And then I just meet him wherever he's at with zero judgment, often where I want to rip his balls off. But I just let him stay his course. It's a hard thing, but you can wire yourself for the possibility and for the solution.
Opposites attract. So the possibility lady with the problem guy, it's because that's how it's meant to be. So we can have balance in life. So I love the fact that you mentioned your faith on this journey. And what I was thinking about when you were talking about the things that you did, they were intentional acts. You had an option of not creating an ambience of positivity in that hospital room. You had the option of staying in a corner and crying. So it was something that you had to do with intent. So it was intentional. But then there's another part to this. As a Christian, you were praying and people were telling you that they were praying in this moment. And that's one of the disappointments of people who don't really know the faith. They feel that if God loves us, God shouldn't let us go through sad things. Why is there war? Why are children dying? And so I was like, you kept your faith when your prayers were not answered. I know that there's no 1, 2, 3 step, but how did you encourage yourself? Because some people get to read, they talk to people. How did you keep your faith? Because like, if you read the book, you'll see that Jessica had times when she said throughout the day, she was uppity. Then in the evening when she was alone, she cried. So, but the next day you got up and did it again. So how did you keep that faith?
I mean, I just want to bawl thinking about it, but I've had this incredible network of people in my life that have given their hearts to Jesus and have walked alongside me. And I remember testing the waters being like, oh man, I don't know if church is for me. I don't know if like I can get down with all this Bible lingo mingo. And there's still things that I wrestle with, but I look to see how my mama lived her life and how her mama lived her life, and how my dad's mom, so Grandma Tilly, Grandma Platt, and my mom, just these incredible women of faith who served and showed up. And not once did they sell me on believe in God and it's easy, believe in God and it all gets better. It was that in the midst of wherever you're at, like he'll meet you. And I think if you're wrestling with faith or you're going like, how do you see that? What changed the game for me is what I view God. And I've kept my faith really simple in a world that's really complicated. So for me, it's two things. The greatest commandments are to love God and love other people. So that's what I'm going to do. That's what I believe in life. I think if we showed up with that set of beliefs, a lot could change. I believe the world could change from that. And I'll meet you wherever you're at, whatever you decide to do with zero judgment, because who am I to, say, oh, well, look at you, you're doing this, you're not worthy, or you're doing this wrong, or whatever it is. Because Lord knows I'm a mess. I'm a human. We make mistakes. We make dumb decisions. We screw up. We fall. We falter. And so when I keep my faith super simple, it's to love God and love other people, wherever they're at, however messy it is. Doesn't always make it easy, doesn't always make it right, but it means to love other people and to love God. So you do that. And then I apply this concept, what we're called to as Christians, which is that we live a life of grace. And that's what it is. It's unmerited, undeserving favor. And that's what God's extended to me when I've messed up or done really crappy things. I would love to use choice language, but I don't know if I can on your podcast. So here's the thing, like I might not be invited to go speak on a stage at Rick Warren's church or Levi Lesko or Chad Veach or, these big mega pastors, Stephen Furtick, because I'm still a real big mess. Like I love Jesus, but I swear like a trucker. I love Jesus, but I drop more F-bombs than I care to admit. Like I love Jesus and I still like to go have a glass of wine or two or three. You know what I mean? But here's the thing is God isn't judging me for it. He loves me and sees me where I'm at. And he's given me this gift of grace, which is unmerited, undeserving favor. And so when I was in the hospital and I had this deep rooted faith and I'd be like, okay, we got this. I could then in the very same instance, hours, minutes, seconds later, be like, how are you, God? And being mad and frustrated and curse and swear and want to punch him and be like, how are you a good God? People be like, God's a good God. God's a God of miracles. And I was like, where's my miracle? Like, haven't served enough, didn't do enough. I just raised $50,000 for a family in a wheelchair that has 2 kids in wheelchairs. Like, is that not holy enough? And so it's this like really big wrestle. But because I keep it simple and because I have this, I know that God is this all loving, all incredible God that even when I doubt him, even when I'm frustrated and mad and I want to, punch him and I have all these choice words for him, he still loves me. His love doesn't run out and it doesn't hit the limit. Oh, Jessica's on her 99th thing of like doing bad stuff today. Well, we cut off the love wagon or we don't extend grace to her anymore. And so that's how I've been able to lean into the faith that even when I doubted, even when it felt hard to believe, this incredible God, a God of love, met me in my mess, sees me through it, doesn't hold judgment, doesn't hold it against me, doesn't punish me for it. He just is like, all right, I'm here. I've got open arms for you. And that piece for me carried me through, that I didn't have to feel shame or guilt or feel real bad that I was like, I'm sorry, God, I didn't love you better. Because he knew that I was just wrestling through my feelings as a human to try and navigate a really tough situation. And when you believe in that kind of God that will love you through any mess, that doesn't hold judgment and doesn't hold past wrongs against you, whoo, that is some freeing power right there.
You've just liberated me, but you don't know it. When you talked about God's grace and the way that you relate with him, with all, whoever, everything that you are, you're using the F word, which I don't really use. But
I use it a lot. So I probably use it enough for both of us.
I'm old school Christian.
I like it.
This is so useful to me because I have a very feisty 16-year-old daughter.
Okay. Yes. She's
who
probably
all
might like me. Mm.
who always reminds me, if I'm talking to her about her sibling, mommy, you are gossiping. If I point out something, you are judgmental.
Mm.
She's all about the rights activism. So when you were talking about grace, it occurred to me that many times we don't even Christians, don't give grace to others.
No, it's hard to do.
Yeah. So if we had grace, we wouldn't be so judgmental because
Mm-hmm.
because people are not doing it the way we think it should be done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now that brings me to the part about self-worth. When you talk about your relationship with God, what I hear is you are very comfortable. It's like a child in the arm of their dad.
Mm-hmm.
A loving father, so loving that the child can be themselves. They don't have to pretend to not smoke because daddy is here. Daddy knows I'm smoking. I know daddy said don't smoke and I'm doing it, but I still get to hug my daddy
Yeah.
because I know he loves me without question. So you talked about self-worth and how when your friend zone thrives, you had to look inside yourself and say, this person is not my knight in shining armor. I am my own hero. You had to value yourself. Speaking to those who have been so buffeted by life and their spouses or their families, and they are just losing it because somebody has rejected them. A job has rejected them.
Yeah.
You talked a little about that. Could you just speak a little bit about self-worth, the power, the importance for us as people, women who are in the mess?
It's crazy because I was just having right before I was having lunch with our incredible nanny who does all of the things. She's so much more than a nanny. I wish I could find her the right title that's like queen of all. And we talked about self-love and this really powerful concept about we all struggle with it. We struggle with self-love. And man, I mean, I wish I had learned some of this, but I believe every tough thing that I went through, wanting to commit suicide, looking at and feeling like I never fit in, trying to be a part of this group, not doing this, holding back because, often I heard, don't be bossy, Jessica, you're so bossy. And I always heard, you're so much, like she's a lot to handle. And now I was like, damn straight, I'm a lot to handle because I'm a lot to handle because I'm friggin' awesome. So if you want a piece of awesomeness, come on over. But if you don't like awesome, then you ain't for me. And it's really easy now because I'm comfortable in my own skin. And it took me years to get here. And I only wish I could have done it sooner. But I see all of the tough things that we've walked through where I wanted to hide in a bathing suit. And I remember being like, oh, should we go? When I looked in bathing suit, I didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel beautiful. I just would look at oh, my cellulite, how am I, only 21 and my legs are more bumpy than everybody else's or whatever it is. So you go through all of these scenarios, you go through all of this. And where I found the most freedom is in this, again, I'll go back to grace, but is unmerited, undeserving favors. You're wrestling through all these tough things and all these thoughts that your brain will offer you. And your brain offers you these thoughts and you have the ability to hook onto them and believe them or just say, yeah, that's just a thought and I'm going to pass it by. And so often what happens is we actually entertain and we hook on to the tough thoughts. And I've just chosen to hook on to the powerful thoughts. Yeah, I am very assertive and very confident. So rather than looking at it as, oh, you're so bossy and you always have to have your way, I was like, no, I get stuff done. I'm assertive and I'm confident because I know what I want. And I'm no longer afraid to tell people what I want because I don't rely on their approval and acceptance of me. Because what's most important is that I know how God sees me and I know how I see me. So it's who am I accountable? I'm accountable to myself. So even in a loving marriage, it's yeah, that's my person, but I don't need my husband to call me worthy. I don't need my husband. Even when we were dating, it was when I finally was the moment where our relationship switched, because I pursued him, I guessed my undying love. And he's like, that's cool, but I don't feel the same way. And I was like, no, but I love you. And I'm like, that's cool. I don't feel the same way. What shifted was when I was screw it. Like, you're going to walk away from this? I was like, screw it. I'm going to become a fitness instructor. I'm going to run a half marathon. I'm going to like climb my way up the corporate ladder. And you know what? You're going to be like, damn, I missed out on the most epic girl ever. And when I switched it, I believe that. When I actually not just said it, but I believed it to my core, all of a sudden his head went like this. And he's like, whoa, I'm going to miss out on the best girl of my life. Because it was the best girl of his life. And I actually finally believed it. So it's like, what happens if you look in the mirror, when you show up with your good ideas, when you come to a meeting? I don't need others' approval. They're not standing in my room. They're not paying my bills. They're not loving on my babies. They're not sleeping with my husband. They're not the ones building a life that it's me. This is it. So if I can check in and say, yeah, it's in alignment with my heart. Yes, this is love. Yeah, I stand behind it. Then guess what? One of my best friends hates my book. She thinks the word nudges is annoying. And guess what? I don't make it mean anything. I'm just like, great. Mel doesn't feel the same way about nudges that I do. Okay. Can we still be best friends? Hells yes. Do I still love her to the absolute core? Yeah. Was I a little bit bummed and a little bit hurt for a good 24 to 48 hours where I was like, damn, my best friend doesn't even like my book. And she still hasn't read it to this day. And she's like, she said the most annoying word is nudges. She's like, I like, and it's been 2 years. She didn't tell me for 2 years. But guess what? I don't need her to love on everything I do. And it's A-okay. She doesn't love me any less. She gets annoyed when I use the word nudges, but guess what? Now I'm just going to use the word nudges around her that much more. Hey, Mel, you been nudged by anything? What nudges have you gotten this week? Hey, any nudges speak to you? But I could sit in that conversation and not let it beat me down and tell me that I was a piece of shit because I wasn't living for Mel. I'm here in this energy exchange with myself. And then I show up better in my marriage. And then I show up better as a mama. And then I show up better as a daughter-in-law or a sister-in-law or whatever it is. But I don't weigh my life on other people's opinion of me. Girlfriend, you want to find the friggin' freedom? Let go. You might even be like, whoa, she didn't shut up. Whoa, not what I expected. Ma, not my style. But I'm okay at the end of this call if you don't want to be my best friend, because it's like, I showed up, I brought my best. I'm at total peace with it. I don't need you to be my best friend because I'm over here doing my thing, paying my bills, living my life.
Awesome. I just love this. Now, Mel, I'm so sorry, but we're going to go into the nudges right now.
Yes.
That was the first thing that got me about the book. Look at the book.
Oh, I love it. Yes.
Look at my highlighters.
You've got more than I do in mine. Yes, I love it.
So the nudges, Mel, you're just gonna have to listen to this.
Buckle up. You know what? She won't even listen to this because she's so sick of hearing my voice. So don't worry.
Wow.
We can poke so much fun of her.
So
it's all good.
The nudges we get lead us to a choice. That was page 10.
Yeah.
And we can either choose to follow them and live a life of abundant and steadfast joy, or we can choose to go our own way and do what is comfortable, which will ultimately lead to dissatisfaction. And then you went on to say on another page, get up, go and write the book, go and write the blog post. And that was really, really helpful to me because I was writing, I'm part of an anthology. So I had to write something. I got up and I went and finished my story. I stopped reading the book and ran to get that. And that issue of nudges, I really want you to speak a little bit about it because for someone like me, there's been several nudges in my life. And every time I don't follow through with them, I end up regretting it. That is why this book means a lot to me. This book means a lot to me because I don't know how many people on earth, how many women listening to me, listening to both of us today, has had those nudges. This thing that you keep thinking about and it does not stop. I was listening to a TED talk and the guy was talking about procrastination.
Yes.
He said he's a procrastinator. So something he's supposed to do he's supposed to write a paper for his last year of university. And instead of writing the paper planning it for the year, he ended up writing it 2 days or 3 days to the end, to the deadline. Yeah. And it was a 90-page or something that big, and he had to do it. So now we have all these nudges, and some of us are great procrastinators. We have no deadline to our nudges. You know, the nudges don't come with a deadline. You just have a thought. a feeling.
Mhm.
And like you said, a person, like in the hot Ronnie friend zoning, your manager talk to you. So we could have a human nudge. So
Yeah.
can you speak about the trouble with procrastination and the nudges? How do we surmount that odd of the procrastination that doesn't want us to move forward with the nudges? And these nudges are going to change our lives if we would just move on them.
Mm. I mean, my book is like living proof of like, look at how many nudges I responded to. And I mean, damn, it's turned out real damn good. Like probably 1% of people get to live this life you're living. I'm living at roof over our heads, warm house, amazing clothes, great people around you, like food in your fridge. Like, yes, are there hard times, but like there's people all over the world that would give anything to be in these moments.
Yes.
So here's the thing. If we're living in this like really incredible zone of like, you have probably way more advantages than anybody else, aren't you doing yourself such a disservice if you just don't go all in and you just like say, I'm going to show up. I'm going to take the risks. Cause I think if you're going through and you have these nudges, they're usually ideas, okay, like little things. And I say in the book, like it's everything from like hold the door open for the old lady, smile, make eye contact, and buy that guy a coffee in line. So it's like maybe who knows what he's walking through, whatever it is, to them being like, you should start a business. I've had a nudge in my heart to start my own business, but because I couldn't visualize it and see the whole how, I just kept putting it off and denying myself and telling myself a story that didn't serve me. You know, you've got these nudges of like, I wonder what would happen if I like told the hot guy in the office, hey, you can come to church with me. You know, like they're uncomfortable. Nudges aren't a thing where you stay in a comfort zone. Nudges is something new and different in your life. So I'm really good at getting uncomfortable because what I'll do is I'll play out what's the worst thing that happens if I do this. The worst thing that happened when I invited my husband to church was he would have said no and laughed in my face and be like, you like Jesus? You go to church? What? Like, it's stupid. And then what's the worst thing that would have happened for me? I would have felt embarrassed, maybe some shame. You know what I mean? You go home and you stew about it. You probably replay the interaction a few times. God, maybe it was in the way I asked him. Maybe it was in my approach. Maybe it was in, you know, whatever. So you play out these scenarios, you feel shame and guilt. But have you ever stayed in shame and guilt for your whole life? No, you've gone through and experienced other emotions, joy, laughter, happiness, sorrow, sadness, grief, anger, frustration, rage, all of it. And then you go back to joy, happiness, compassion, all of it. So we go in and out of these emotions. So it's just about equipping yourself with the tools that if it doesn't go, if it doesn't work out, that you never stay in shame and guilt, that you don't stay in shooting yourself. You never stay in one thing forever. I don't stay in a state of joy all the time. Now, joy is a lot of where I spend a lot of my time. I experience shame and guilt and rage and frustration. I've just learned how to navigate them better. I've just learned how to navigate and not stay in them and not let them weigh me down. So now if I'm going to take a risk or follow through on a nudge, I know the worst thing that happens is I might be embarrassed. I might go, you're such an idiot. I should have done it differently, right? So if you play that out, I'm going to follow through on this nudge. What's the worst thing that happens? I start this business. It totally fails. I declare bankruptcy. I can't own my own home for 7 years. I have to rebuild my credit. And you know what I mean? It's like, and I'd be embarrassed to tell people that I started a business. It totally failed and whatever. I have a business mentor. He is one of the most successful individuals in this city, in this province. And he declared bankruptcy. He lost it all. Guy went bankrupt. And guess what? Here he is 25 years later celebrating his company's 25th anniversary and has more money than he knows what to do with. He sleeps on $100 bills. So like, it just goes to show you, he did the thing that we played out. What if I fail? What if I fail my children? What if we lose our home? He lost his home. He failed his family. He failed his investors. And now here he is 25 years later with more money than he knows what to do with. So it's like, we just play out this case scenario, and this goes back to problem or possibility. If you have a nudge, if there's something that you have an idea or a seed that has been planted in your heart, it's there for a reason. And if it keeps coming up, that's like somebody being like, hello, go do the thing. You're capable. We'll figure it out along the way. It's okay that you don't have the full game plan. And then if you move forward with belief that it's going to work out, that's where it unfolds. And let me tell you, I still have not had to declare bankruptcy yet. Not yet. Lord have mercy. We just refied our house. And I probably shouldn't even tell you that because Ronnie's spiraling out of control. And he's like, I'm like, guess what? We're going to figure it out. When I committed to raising funds for this family, I got this nudge. I got this nudge to help this little boy in a classroom. I got this nudge to take these kids on these trips. I've got this nudge to raise money for a wheelchair accessible van because I knew they weren't in a position to do it. And I was like, how am I going to raise 50 grand? This was before GoFundMe and all the things and social media, and you could press the share arrow and you could link a Instagram story and you could get it on the news and whatever. Like, damn, today everything's that much easier because you could just got more at your fingertips. I didn't know the how, but I had belief that it was possible. And the very first step that I took in saying I'm going to raise $50,000, I had 13 people show up and we only raised $600. And I was embarrassed and it felt like a failure. I didn't know the full how, but I had this nudge. And so I just kept showing up. So if you have a nudge and you're scared of what's going to happen, you should be more scared of what happens if you don't try. You should be more scared of, if I quit now, it's going to be the end. So I'm just like, we're not there yet. Great. We're not quitting. All right, let's find a way.
Regarding the love for Lewiston Foundation, one of the things that you said in the hospital that really, really touched my heart, because I believe it, is the power of vision.
Yeah.
So you started with the power of vision. And today we have this wonderful foundation that's doing so much good in other people's lives. Could you just speak a little bit about how important it is to have a vision? Because you not only had a vision for your family, you had a vision for the life that Lewiston lived, what to do with that life.
I think even more so, it's a vision that I have for our family. It's a vision that I have about legacy. And I have some amazing friends. I'm going to give them a shout out. They owned Etched YYC. If you ever need a Yeti, Etched, they're your people. They ship across Canada. And I was interviewing Kyle, one of the owners, the husband, for a position on our board. And one of the things that struck me that was so powerful, he said, like, we're not just focused about our future and what we're doing, but he goes, we're focused on our legacy. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. I don't want to just live a life that, like, you go through. I think I'll probably get to about 82. That's my rough guess. And then other times I live in this world where I was like, I have a feeling I'm going to die before I'm 40. And then it's like going to be like, whoa, but I'm also like, God, Ronnie can't handle that. So please do not give Ronnie more than he can handle. Cause like that might put the man over the edge. He's had a lot of loss in his life. So I have this vision of living this abundant life till I'm 80. And I don't care what people say about me now. I don't care about people's opinions, because the important stuff gets talked about usually when we're 8 feet under. The important stuff about, like, the impact that we had gets talked about when it's over. And so the life that I'm building is this vision that I have that's about legacy, about what am I instilling? And I look to the lessons that my grandparents, my parents, these great people around us have taught us. And this connection piece. And so for me, it's like this vision of what we dream our life to be. And my vision is so clear that I have this belief that it's possible. And my vision isn't just about living today and what happens tomorrow. It's about lasting impact that changes people's lives forever. That's the type of life I want to live. I don't want to play small. I want to just coexist and do the same things, wash, rinse, and repeat. And I believe the game changers are the one that step into legacy living. And so my son, it took him dying for me to step into that. And I go, whoa, it takes somebody of that closeness, importance, of that nature to wake me up. And I just wonder if we all stop focusing on just like that, okay, whatever, and said, why are we here? What's the purpose? Why are my feet planted here? That changes how you show up. And when you have a clear vision and you show up with belief, that's when you get to this legacy living. That's how you live it out.
I know that Lewiston's legacy lives on.
Mm-hmm.
And his birthday is a point of celebration to remind us about that life. And I just want to say thank you for a particular line that I read in the book that your friend told you. She said, is when we stop speaking their name that they die. My firstborn is a twin. My second twin died 2 months after she was born. I never spoke my daughter's name because I wasn't allowed to grieve. The moment I tried to grieve for my child, I was shouted down. So it was when we moved to Canada, I volunteered with the Canadian Mental Health and their grief counseling unit. And they had an event that was a candlelight evening where people who had lost their children, they gave each person a candle. And when I told them that I had lost my child, when they said that's what they were doing, and someone now gave me a candle and said, call the name of the child. My daughter had died 14 years earlier. That was the first time I was calling her name. So when I read that part of that book, the fact that the children come here and they actually have a life, they lived, no matter how short that life was. It's our choice as parents, what we do with the legacy of the life they lived, no matter how short they were. And that was really, really touching to me. And I don't know if you're a listener and you lost a child. Maybe the child passed away as a baby, so you don't think there's anything to it. I want you to know that the child has a legacy. And the only one left to lift that legacy up on earth is you. And don't be like me. Don't wait 14 years. And if you've waited 14 years before you call the child's name, it's not too late. You're hearing it today. Take a moment and remember your child. And if there's anything you can do to remind the world that you had that child, go for it. When we started this conversation, Jessica asked me how many children I have. I said 4. And I always say 4, but I actually have 5 children. 1 is waiting for me in heaven. So Jessica, I know that the Love for Lewiston Foundation celebrates Lewiston's birthday. It's a big fundraiser and it's coming up soon.
Yeah.
Would you just share with our listeners and just tell us what the foundation actually does? Because this foundation has fundraised up to $1.2 million in the last
1.3, girl. We're up 1.3.
Almost in the last almost 6 years now.
Yeah. So it'll be our officially 5th year as of May 25th this year. So we started in 2017 till 2022. So we talk about legacy living, but before we dive in this, you still haven't said your daughter's name. What was your daughter's name?
Victory. My dad names my kids. She names our kids. So my living twin is Gift. Victory. My daughter is Victory.
Wow. Beautiful. So we just got to speak life. The name of Victory. And you're going to start telling people you're a mama of 5 because you're a mama of 5.
I will. Thank you.
So out of that, and I just want to encourage, if anyone's experienced loss, we just speak life into their names. We share stories and we keep them present. And we have pictures of Lewiston all up in our home. And I love talking about my son. Just like I don't have that many stories because he was only with us for 6 months. And so it kind of feels silly. And I think the grief piece is really difficult, especially if you haven't navigated it. And I feel like lots of people don't have tools to know we're shamed for you do this and it's right for one person, but it could be wrong for somebody else. And I've just known that if you have, you're coming from it from a good place in your heart, it might not always be right or what somebody needs, but it doesn't mean that you intentionally showed up to hurt someone's feelings or do something. And so for me and for our family, we like talking about Lewiston. We love sharing his story and who he is and sharing pictures. And that's important to us. It might not be the same for other people. It's really tough, but I'm just always grateful when people mention his name because it is. He's no longer here earthside with us, but he is waiting up in heaven with victory, probably having a dance party. And I look forward to that day when I get to join him. So in that, if you have lost somebody, keep speaking their name, speak life into it, share the stories that you do have, and don't let them go to waste, because there was purpose in their life and how they played for you. And there's purpose in how Lewiston played. It was short, but it was impactful. Yeah. And so then if we talk about this love for Lewiston, the Love for Lewiston Foundation was in response to not having Lewiston here with us. I don't think that this is for everyone. It's honestly one of the stupidest, craziest, hard things that we've ever done is start a foundation, have a board of directors, put board of directors and figure out accounting and policies and CRA and how to be fiscally responsible and, do all of this right and according to the law and all of it. I think lots of people just see fun parties and they forget the behind the scenes tough part. But we started this foundation in response to saying there's a gap. And for us, the gap is that there wasn't a ton of funding within spinal muscular atrophy. These families were facing extreme financial burdens. And I knew it all too well from what we would have had to face in the future. And also from my learned experience of helping this family for 9 years, just seeing the costs of things. Like a wheelchair is $35,000. I was like, my car has got a tape deck in it and worth about $6,000. You know what I mean? Like hot dog. I can't imagine you're just wanting to get your child from A to B. And for it to have, it's not even bells and whistles, but functional features like raising the seat up and down so they can grab stuff in a grocery store, being able to have, an option to tilt the seat rest back so that they can get comfortable. They don't have the ability physically, so they rely on a manual wheelchair to be able to do all these things. And so we saw all of those obstacles, and our response to, okay, there's a problem and it needs to be solved was, here's how we can help. And so we shared our son's story and we talked about why, and we've raised over $1.3 million. $500,000 of that 1.3 has been plugged back into Alberta Children's Hospital, and we funded newborn screening. And here in our province on February 28th, 2022, they just announced this screening was actually taking place. So every time a baby is born, they take a little heel prick, they withdraw blood, and it gets tested for 21. Lewiston was the 22nd disease to be included, SMA, through kind of Lewiston's work and the research and all the fundraising. That was the 22nd disease to be added to the panel. Our goal is to have that across Canada and all over the world, because we're here 5 years later, 6 years later, and there's now treatment and there's gene therapy and there's all of these differences that there was not when Lewiston was born and then eventually got his diagnosis. And we know if you can have early detection, you can see that you can get early treatment. And that wasn't the case when Lewiston was here, but it is the case now. So how beautiful is that we can use this story to say, this is why this is important. This is why this has to happen. And so our foundation is in response to this legacy living piece. This response is to saying, okay, this is the so now what? We won't stay stuck in the why did this happen to us? We'll focus on the so now what? And what's all the possibilities? We believe in our lifetime a cure will come. We believe in our lifetime that families won't have to fight for funding for physiotherapy. And in the interim, while they're navigating all these extra costs and these challenges with medical resources and physiotherapy and respite and the things that I don't even think about, we're going to be that piece of the puzzle and be an organization that just walks alongside these families. So we've been able to do some incredible work, pour funds back into where Lewiston got his incredible care from. I can't say enough good things about Alberta Children's Hospital and the team, the nurses, the doctors, the staff, the cleaning staff, the maintenance crew, you name it, they're incredible. And so if you're walking through something tough, my question is like, stop sitting in the why and start asking, so now what? And it doesn't have to be a foundation that does 1.3 million plus in all of it. Maybe it's just that I have this follower every year on her dad's birthday. They ask that you buy a coffee and say, it's on Bob. Like that's her so now what? Her so now what is that her dad loved buying people coffee and making them feel loved. And so on his birthday, she has a It's on Bob campaign. So whatever it is, you can respond. And it doesn't always have to be the most extreme thing. It can just be the act of buying someone a cup of coffee that is legacy living at its finest. You define what success looks for you. You define what joy looks like. You get to choose your reaction, your response. So just choose it well.
Wonderful. Thank you for the great work you've done in that field and the lives that are being made better because Lewiston lived. Thank you. So what's happening on the 28th or 25th of May?
So Lewiston's birthday is May 25th. This is the first year that we won't actually be celebrating his birthday. I do have something fun coming up on his birthday that I haven't announced yet, because I've never spent his birthday alone. We've always been with lots of people, which we've loved. For me as a grieving mama, I didn't want to sit at home feeling like going through the motions. So planning something intentionally has really helped me with my grief and how we face, big milestones and significant mile markers. But on the 28th, we're hosting his birthday party. It's one of our biggest fundraisers of the year. Our goal this year will be to raise $200,000 in an evening. And that's through a live auction, a silent auction. That's through ticket sales. And basically we get people to come and party, and we have a dance party and great music and great food. And we honor our little guy. We bring some awareness and education about what we're navigating. And then we see how much money we can raise. And I have the belief that 200,000 is possible. And if we get to 160, I don't beat myself up for it, because it's better than sitting at zero. So it's a really special day. And I'm really looking forward to thank the good Lord that we're back where we can host gatherings and be in rooms full of people, shoulder to shoulder, celebrating, connecting, feeling the energy. And that's what I'm so excited about, was being in a room with this incredible energy to celebrate a little boy and to celebrate legacy. And so we get to do it again after not being able to do it for 2 years. And I'm pretty pumped.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. So on the show notes, I'm going to put the link to the to the tickets, and also just in case you're very far away from Calgary and you're not able to attend in person, but you want to donate, I'll also put the link. I'll put the link there for you too, so you can donate to the Love for Lewiston Foundation that's supporting families and organizations like Alberta Children's Hospital to help change the trajectory of the lives of children who are born with or diagnosed with spinal muscular atrophy.
Muscular atrophy. Yeah, you got it. It's a mouthful.
It is, but yeah, it's something you've done amazing. I just want to read a little bit as we round up the conversation today.
Yeah.
This part of this book, I just want you to just listen and think about those things that you want to do, the possibilities for the life that you have, the gift of life that we have. Lewiston lived 179 days. We have lived longer. What are we doing with the life that we've been given? So I'm just going to read this. It's on page 12 of the book. So when you get the book, Bring the Joy, there'll also be a link to where you can buy the book on the show notes as well. If you take one thing away from this book, I want it to be this. Learn to follow the promptings and whispers of your heart. Learn to listen to those nudges. They are there for a reason. My prayer is that you will get up and go after whatever that nudge might be. Stop complaining and sitting idle. Stop wasting the hours, minutes, and seconds you have been given. Stop being so busy that you miss out on the amazing things right in front of you. Stop answering how you're doing with busy. I'm so busy. Busyness is not the state of your heart. Busyness is a byproduct of how you planned or didn't plan your day, week, or year. I want you to listen to this part. Turn off the TV. Stop scrolling and watching other people's accomplishments that make you jealous, especially on social media. That part I added. And take action. You have breath in your lungs and a beating heart. You have dreams and goals and ideas that are too good to slip away. Follow the nudges and trust that it will bring you some of your biggest blessings. That part of this book really touched me. In fact, everything about this book touched me. So I could read you other parts too that touched me. So Jessica, thank you so much for your time, for your story, for the privilege of having you here. But because I am Oliver Twist, I always ask, can you give us something for the road, for that woman who has been listening? Something to remind her that she too can. You used your pain to propel yourself into your purpose. She too can.
It's exactly that. What if you had this deep-seated belief that every moment that you have lived through, that you have journeyed through, crawled your way out of, enjoyed your mountaintop moments, the pits, the dark valleys, what if you had this belief that it led you and prepared you for this moment, for the next chapter? All of that got you ready to write a new chapter. And now the question is, will you write a chapter worth reading? I learned that from one of my good friends that I've connected with. He is 38 years old and found a tumor the size of a cantaloupe in his stomach. A tumor the size of a cantaloupe. And he lives now saying, every chapter I write will be one worth reading. Don't wait for your son to die or for you to find the tumor the size of a cantaloupe to go after. Live the life that you dream of. Just show up and start doing it. It's not going to be easy, but it will be worth it. And if you show up with the belief that it's possible, and you show up focused on the possibility and not on the problem, you will get more of what's possible and less of that problem. Know that I'm cheering you on and holding space because I believe it's possible for you. And I can't wait to see you have your victory moments and say, I'm doing it. I'm living it. I'm writing a chapter that's worth reading, and I'm encouraging you to do the same.
Thank you so much, Jessica. So if you're listening and you're a woman who is in the mess, those words were for you. And if you have been in the mess and you have a story to share, to lift another woman up, please look in the show notes. You will see a link to DM me, and I will have you on Mercy Can't Stop Her. Mercy didn't stop Jessica. Mercy hasn't stopped me. And Mercy can't stop you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and see you next time.